Canada prides itself on equality and fairness, but is that true for the LGBTQ community? Behind the rainbow flags and government promises lies a much harsher reality: job discrimination, neglect, and a system that often ignores their struggles. Today, we expose the truth Canada doesn't want you to see. If you value this kind of work, please consider supporting us at https:/buymeacoffee.com. True North Canada first. Every coffee keeps us going. Link in the description. Act 1. Canada's Promise versus Reality. Canada has built a reputation on the global stage as one of the most progressive countries in the world when it comes to equality. Prime ministers wave rainbow flags at Pride. Major cities host some of the largest LGBTQ parades in North America, and Canadian embassies abroad proudly display the Pride flag each June. The world looks at Canada and sees a nation where fairness is guaranteed for all. But beneath this image lies a difficult truth. Many LGBTQ Canadians argue that while the promises are loud, the delivery is quiet. Equality looks good in speeches and headlines, but when you walk into workplaces, schools, or hospitals, the lived experience tells a very different story. For every rainbow-painted crosswalk, there are stories of individuals denied fair wages, overlooked for promotions, or outright dismissed because of who they are. Consider the promises of job equality. Canada's government has publicly committed to non-discrimination in employment. Yet countless reports reveal gaps between policy and reality. LGBTQ employees often describe subtle but painful experiences: being excluded from networking opportunities, being passed over for leadership roles, or facing coded language during job interviews where employers question their fit in the company. In Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal, cities that are hailed as inclusive hubs, surveys show LGBTQ employees still earn less than their heterosexual counterparts with the same qualifications. In smaller cities like Regina, St. John's, or Thunder Bay, the situation is worse, with little infrastructure to protect or advocate for marginalized workers. This disconnect reveals a pattern. Canada is excellent at making symbolic gestures of support, but poor at transforming those gestures into measurable progress. Pride floats and speeches might make the headlines, but for LGBTQ Canadians struggling with joblessness or discrimination, those symbols feel hollow. Even immigration policies reflect this contradiction. Canada welcomes LGBTQ refugees fleeing persecution abroad, offering them safety and recognition. Yet once here, many still find themselves pushed into unstable, low-paying jobs, unable to break into careers where they are truly valued. Canada's promise of fairness is real, but it is uneven, inconsistent, and in many cases, incomplete. This is the Canada that few headlines talk about. The Canada where rainbow flags cover cracks in a system that continues to leave too many people behind. And for the LGBTQ community, the question becomes louder each year. Is Canada's promise of equality real, or is it just a colorful illusion? Act 2. Struggles in the job market. The job market is one of the clearest battlegrounds where the LGBTQ community's struggle plays out. Studies show that LGBTQ workers are more likely to face unemployment or underemployment even when they hold degrees and qualifications equal to or greater than their peers. Transgender Canadians in particular face enormous barriers, with many reporting outright rejection during the hiring process once employers discover their identity. In cities like Toronto, Brampton, Mississauga, and Surrey, LGBTQ workers report wage gaps compared to heterosexual colleagues in similar positions. A national study found that gay men earn on average 5 to 10% less than heterosexual men, while transgender workers face unemployment rates 3 times higher than the national average. For many LGBTQ Canadians, the struggle begins before they even enter the workplace. Job interviews are often laced with subtle discrimination. Employers might avoid asking illegal questions, but still make judgments based on appearance, tone, or perceived gender identity. Some candidates report being told they might not fit the company culture, a phrase often used to mask bias. Even when LGBTQ workers secure employment, the barriers don't stop. Many describe being excluded from workplace networking events, overlooked for mentorship, or discouraged from applying for promotions. In industries like finance, law, and technology, which pride themselves on progressiveness, LGBTQ workers still find themselves hitting invisible ceilings. The situation is even harder for transgender Canadians. Many trans workers report difficulty accessing even basic opportunities. Some employers hesitate to hire them, citing concerns about customer reactions. Others fail to provide gender-inclusive workplaces, forcing trans workers to choose between hiding their identity or facing hostility. Beyond discrimination, economic vulnerability plays a major role. Without stable employment, LGBTQ Canadians are more likely to live in poverty, rely on precarious contract work, or be forced into sectors where they are undervalued. The promise of equal opportunity in Canada feels like a myth when the lived reality is constant financial struggle. And while large corporations release pride-themed advertisements each June, workers behind the scenes know the truth. Rainbow branding sells products, but it does little to dismantle the systemic barriers that keep LGBTQ Canadians trapped in cycles of underemployment and insecurity. For too many, the workplace isn't a space of growth and opportunity. Instead, it becomes another reminder that in Canada, equality is promised but not delivered. Act 3. Being ignored by the system. Outside the job market, LGBTQ Canadians face another struggle: being ignored by the very systems designed to protect them. While laws against discrimination exist, enforcement is weak and uneven. Many cases go unreported because victims fear retaliation, or because they've lost faith that the system will take their concerns seriously. Youth homelessness is one of the most pressing crises. Though only 5 to 10% of Canadian youth identify as LGBTQ, they make up 20 to 25% of homeless youth. Many are rejected by families and find themselves on the streets, yet shelters and housing programs often fail to provide safe, affirming spaces. In some shelters, transgender youth are harassed or forced into unsafe accommodations. Mental health is another area of neglect. LGBTQ Canadians are more than twice as likely to experience depression or anxiety compared to the general population. For transgender individuals, the numbers are even more alarming, with nearly 1/3 reporting a suicide attempt at some point in their lives. Yet mental health services tailored to LGBTQ needs remain scarce, underfunded, and geographically limited. Healthcare inequality deepens the crisis. Transgender Canadians face wait times of up to 2 years for gender-affirming surgeries. Hormone therapy access depends on province, with major urban centres offering more support, while rural areas leave people with little to no access. Equality in healthcare becomes a matter of geography. Seniors in the LGBTQ community face their own struggles. Many who lived through decades of activism now fear returning to the closet in long-term care homes, where discrimination still occurs. Reports show that LGBTQ seniors often feel unsafe expressing their identity in elder care facilities, highlighting how equality fades later in life. Even in education, progress is uneven. While some provinces allow LGBTQ inclusive curriculums and support gay-straight alliances, others face political pushback, leaving LGBTQ students vulnerable to bullying and exclusion. The gap between supportive and unsupportive provinces shows how inconsistent Canada's protections really are. These failures all point to a larger problem. Canada's system is designed to look equal on paper, but often fails in practice. Promises are made, but the follow-through is inconsistent, leaving too many LGBTQ Canadians falling through the cracks. For those living this reality, the message is clear. Canada may not be actively attacking LGBTQ communities, but its failure to act, fund, and enforce protections feels like abandonment all the same. Act 4. The reality of abandonment. One of the clearest signs of abandonment is the rise in hate crimes. Statistics Canada reports that between 2019 and 2023, police reported hate crimes targeting sexual orientation nearly doubled. Despite laws against such crimes, LGBTQ Canadians report that police often fail to take complaints seriously. Schools remain unsafe for many LGBTQ youth. Surveys show that more than half of transgender students experience bullying or harassment. While policies exist, enforcement is inconsistent, and many students feel isolated and unsupported. In rural areas, the lack of resources makes the situation even worse. Workplace protections also fall short. Many LGBTQ Canadians know that while discrimination is technically illegal, proving it is nearly impossible. Without witnesses or clear evidence, workers are left to suffer in silence, often fearing retaliation if they speak out. Immigration adds another layer of complexity. Canada proudly accepts LGBTQ refugees, but once they arrive, many are left without the resources to integrate fully. They may face discrimination in housing, employment, and healthcare, leaving them doubly marginalized. Older generations of LGBTQ Canadians also face abandonment. Many who fought for the rights enjoyed today are now entering senior care, only to find themselves hiding their identities again out of fear of mistreatment. Equality, it seems, fades with age. Media plays a role in this abandonment as well. Coverage of Pride events overshadows the daily struggles faced by LGBTQ Canadians. Headlines celebrate symbolic progress, while systemic issues are buried, leaving the public with a false sense of security. For LGBTQ Canadians in smaller cities like Brampton, Mississauga, and Surrey, these challenges are amplified. Limited resources, cultural tensions, and fewer support networks mean that abandonment feels even more severe. This pattern of neglect and broken promises makes one thing clear: Canada's promise of equality is still far from reality. Canada's promise of equality cannot just be about appearances. It must be about real jobs, real safety, and real fairness. Until then, the LGBTQ community will remain ignored and struggling. So, what do you think? Is Canada truly living up to its promise, or failing those it claims to protect? Support our work so we can keep exposing the truth. https://buymeacoffee.com. True North Canada first. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to join the conversation. Link in the description.